This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. All right, so the trade deadline has happened, and the Browns pretty much stand pat. The one move that they made was trading Donovan Peoples-Jones to the Detroit Lions for a 6th-round pick. Now, my quick thoughts on that. Don't love that trade. I understand why they made a move. They wanted to get something back for somebody whose compensatory value, has been going down the dumps. So the thought process was, hey, if DPJ balls out and then he walks in free agency, he doesn't walk away for nothing. You get a comp pick in return for Donovan Peoples-Jones signing somewhere, anywhere between a 3rd and a 7th. And the thought was, if he played well enough to get like a $10 to $20 million contract for somewhere else, you probably get like a comp 4th or 5th round pick. So it'd be worthwhile to just let him play throughout the whole season. But since that does not look like it's in the cards for Donovan Peoples-Jones, they made the move to trade him for a 6th round pick and basically, just try to get whatever compensation they can try to get at this point, because they're not confident he's going to play at a high enough level to warrant a high enough contract to get a compensatory pick, is how I read this trade coming off, right? You just wanted to make sure you got something, and DPJ was in that range of, you might be able to bring him back for $4 million if you want to do it, or somebody else will sign him on a really low deal, and that means that you don't get any compensation back. So that's the nuts and bolts of why that trade happened. I think we all feel like DPJ is better than a 6th round pick value. He overperformed his whole career from that 6th round position. This is the 1 year in his career where he's kind of underperformed. You could put it on quarterback play, even though we've seen DPJ be fine with lesser quarterbacks, right? Well, not lesser than what they have right now, but less quarterback play, right? I don't know if his play is completely dependent on that. So I don't know if that's what went wrong with him this year. Maybe it was a fit with some of the changes that they made in the offense that just wasn't going his way. Maybe it's what he was asked to do. And maybe he wasn't happy behind the scenes. I think all of that is just speculation at this point. But I think the nuts and bolts behind why they traded him was some of that compensatory, I don't know why my pronunciation on that is so weird, compensatory reasoning of just making sure that you try to get something of value out of him, because you were at risk of getting nothing for him if he walked. So they move him to Detroit. Hope the best for DPJ going back to his hometown, being able to make things happen down there. What does this mean for the Browns? I would be interested to see who is active. Like, is it going to be Dalen Baldwin that's going to be back there returning punts? Or is it going to be somewhere along the lines of like a Cedric Tillman that gets back active? Or maybe we don't even activate another receiver. We're talking about maybe activating Siaki Ika or somebody like that to have another defensive lineman in the rotation, because the Browns have been getting beat up the middle. They might want to get more beef there, and getting rid of an active player opens up a spot. Now, we assume since DPJ was a wide receiver, that spot was going to be a wide receiver. But also, I wouldn't rule out that somebody who's already active just takes that role, like a David Bell or something like that. Like, maybe he takes that role and we still see Cedric Tillman on the inactive list. We'll find out where they plan to go with that on Sunday when they announce the game day actives and inactives. Whoever is active is who also they made that move for. There's been a lot of thought that the trade of Donovan Peoples-Jones might be to help make room for Cedric Tillman to be on the roster, because he has chemistry with DTR, who some people think has a chance to start this week. I don't know if that has very much to do with it, because Donovan Peoples-Jones, because he's been sandwiched in this weird spot on the roster, he actually would have been taking a fair bit of his snaps in the preseason and training camp with DTR. So I don't think that was really a factor in starting DTR or not the more I look at it. The Browns also stood pat at quarterback, which was the biggest thing whenever I talked about the trade deadline that a lot of Browns fans wanted to talk about. Now, there were some moves around the league at quarterback and some rumors about what was happening with Jacoby Brissett, so let's get through them. One of the names that's been talked about a lot, Josh Dobbs. Me personally, don't really see a good reason to go after a dude like Josh Dobbs. I think he's kind of overrated at this point. I understand that he's kept the Cardinals in close games and he's played better football than some people have expected, but that man's still Josh Dobbs, and we kind of know what that is, right? He's not been somebody who's been pushing for active time his NFL career. He's been a game day inactive guy, a practice squad, a perennial practice squad guy for most of his career. I don't think that's changed suddenly in like his 6th or 7th year in the league. I think he's still the same Josh Dobbs that was available, off the waiver wire a couple of years ago to start. And he's won one career game in 10 starts or 11 starts or something like that. So he hasn't been the most successful quarterback in NFL history. But a lot of Browns fans want to see if the Browns would make a move for that. Mary Kay made some noise about the Browns possibly making a move for him since he got benched by the Arizona Cardinals this week. Turns out that was a big nothing burger. I don't think the Browns were even interested in bringing in Josh Dobbs. He ended up getting traded. Josh Dobbs, and a 7th round pick, a conditional 7th round pick, got traded for a 6th round pick. So Browns got a 5th rounder for Josh Dobbs. The Cardinals got a 6th rounder for Josh Dobbs, and maybe the Vikings trade him for a 7th rounder and complete the circuit. But that was the one move for Josh Dobbs. There was a lot of noise about Jacoby Brissett, given that the Commanders traded both Chase Young for a 3rd round pick, which was crazy to me, and Montez Sweat for a 2nd round pick, which made sense to me. I'm like, Montez Sweat is a 2nd round pick quality player. I thought Chase Young was around that as well. I'm shocked that they didn't get 2 2nd round picks for that, but the Bears, I guess they were willing to overpay. But also people were looking into Jacoby Brissett. The reports were that the Commanders were unwilling to move off of a day 2 pick for Jacoby Brissett, which means that they wanted a 3rd round pick for Jacoby. They traded Chase Young for a 3rd round pick and thought that they were going to fleece somebody for a 3rd round pick on Jacoby Brissett. That's ridiculous. That is a ridiculous. Chase Young, 3rd round pick. Now, I'm going to put it this way. If it came out that the Browns traded a 3rd round pick for Jacoby Brissett, and then minutes later, it came out that the 49ers gave up a 3rd round pick, a compensatory 3rd round pick for Chase Young, y'all would be furious. And rightfully so, because that's a gross overpay. Apparently, the Browns offered a 6th round pick. Now, I don't know how substantial that reporting is because it came from a reporter I'm not familiar with, but enough people that I trust took that report seriously. So the report is that the Browns offered a 6th round pick for Jacoby Brissett. The Commanders were unwilling to get off of a day 2 pick. So they weren't willing to go take a 5th for him. They wanted a 3rd round pick for Jacoby. I'm as big as a Jacoby Brissett guy as you will find. I think Jacoby Brissett is underrated. He's a lot closer to what people think Jimmy Garoppolo is than I believe Jimmy Garoppolo actually is. But I wouldn't trade a 3rd round pick for Jacoby Brissett. That's ridiculous. That's nuts. And the 3rd round pick for a guy who's making $8 million too at the backup position. So he's not even like a cheap backup. That's ridiculous. That's goofy. Stop it. A 3rd round pick for a guy that you didn't even think is better than Sam Howell. Like, no. I'm not. No, that's ridiculous. So the Browns didn't make that move. I honestly don't blame them. They're standing pat at quarterback. That's going to frustrate some people who want a move to be made there. But the question I'm going to ask for the people who want a move to be made there is, do you want a move to be made because you legitimately think that that's what this team needs to be successful? Or do you want a move to be made because you have ran out of hope on PJ Walker? I think it's more the latter. I think it's just like, hey, we now know what the ceiling is on PJ Walker, so we want to throw somebody else in there who we don't know what the ceiling is, so we can have that hope again. Whether that be DTR, which I wouldn't mind, whether that be Jacoby Brissett, which I wouldn't mind, or like Carson Wentz, which I think would be a terrible idea, right? Like, I think some Browns fans just want to be able to believe that the starting quarterback play can be better than what it's been the last few weeks, but it is going to be what it is going to be. I think the bigger problem for the Browns right now is that their starting quarterback is not healthy. I think arguing about who the backup should be is small potatoes in the big picture. Like, I think you're getting backup quarterback level play right now. It's just not good. It's not pretty, but no backup's going to step in and be great. If they were, then they wouldn't be backups, right? Like, there's only 15 to 18 good quarterbacks in the league, right? Not every team's starter is good, let alone your backup being good. So, it's supply and demand in a way. There's just not that many good quarterbacks. If anybody gets knocked to their backup, it's going to be looking like this, right? If the Bengals lost Joe Burrow, it's going to look like this. If the Chiefs lose Pat Mahomes, it's going to look like this. If, we saw with the Vikings, they're scrambling to try to get Josh Dobbs because Kirk Cousins went out, and they're probably going to suck now, right? They're probably going to be top 5 pick category. Might get Drake May since that Kirk Cousins contract is expiring. So, it just is what it is. I think we've done a lot of arguing, to be honest, like too much arguing over who the backup should be. And I don't think the record changes if you swap the backup for a bunch of different guys. Maybe there's a game that you win with Jacoby Brissett, but there might be a game that you won that you lost because you had Jacoby Brissett. There's no quick solution at quarterback is my point. And for a fan base that has watched the team struggle at quarterback for 20 years, has started 35, 38 different quarterbacks, or however many whatever the number is today, we should know this better than anybody. And what frustrates me with the whole debate about the quarterback trades or what the Browns should do at backup is that it ignores that history. We're just acting as if good quarterback play is something we can simply trade for. You know what I mean? Like, from a backup position, like, nonetheless, like, it's one thing if you trade for Deshaun, who you think is a former Pro Bowl player, and you expect him to play at that level at 27 years old, and he hasn't done that so far, and it's been rough. But it takes time to get to that evaluation of a dude like that. It is what it is. It's just rough. But when it comes to a backup quarterback, I got people suggesting trades like that's going to solve the problem. There's no quick fix. Like, I hate to be the one to break it to some people, but there's no quick fix at quarterback. There was nobody that you were going to trade for that was going to turn around the season. There's nobody that you're going to trade for that's going to walk in and be even an average level quarterback, even mediocre. It's hard to find. Daniel Jones got $40 million because he's mediocre. That's how valuable quarterback play is. You're not just going to find that sitting on somebody's bench. You're not going to find that sitting on the street. You're not going to find that easily. We should know this better than anybody. But yet I have people suggesting that we can just simply get that out of a Josh Dobbs or Jacoby Brissett, even though Jacoby Brissett does make more sense, right? But like a Josh Dobbs or whoever you want to throw in there. And I think the truth is, with this team, if they had the backup quarterback start playing, when they had the backup quarterback start playing post week 3, you're lucky to get to 4-3 with any of those guys. You're at 4-3. With the chance to go 5-3. A good chance. But that's what happened at the trade deadline. That's my thoughts on it. I don't mind that the Browns stood pat at quarterback. The price was too high for Jacoby. And if the price was too high for Jacoby, it didn't make sense to bring anybody else in, given that quarterback would have to learn the system, have to be here for a couple weeks. You would have to change some things. Like, what this team needs less than bad quarterback play is to have to make another change to a brand new quarterback. Like, they've already done this 3 different times. You got to just work with what's in the room. if you're the Browns at this point. And bringing in somebody from outside the room, especially somebody who's not been in this room all year, that just was never going to be a feasible solution, whether you think Deshaun's going to be out for a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. It was never really a feasible solution. So the Browns stand pat. This is why I don't like to hype people up on this channel about imaginary trades that I don't think have a high chance of happening. That's why I would not sit here and hype up a Derrick Henry trade that I know for a fact is not going to happen. That's why I'm not going to sit here and hype up DeAndre Hopkins, or not DeAndre Hopkins. I thought that would have a chance to happen at least before Tennessee decided they didn't want to sell anymore. But a Devontae Adams trade that we know damn well ain't happening. Like, I try to make sure I am responsible with the stuff that I bring up on this channel, because I don't want people to get mad or be disappointed when something doesn't happen that was never really planned to happen to begin with. I want to be very reasonable with the things that I bring on here. And I feel like a lot of people are disappointed because, unfortunately, a lot of people that cover this team decided to be a little irresponsible with what they put out there and started putting out some imaginary shit when it comes to what the Browns could get at the trade deadline. I thought that you would come in here, maybe try to make a move for Ezra Cleveland, who was moved. Browns didn't get him. That sucks. Maybe you trade Donovan Peoples-Jones. You kick the tires on a couple guys like D-Hop. You kick the tires on the Jacoby Brissett. But if the price ain't right on both of those, then you don't probably make those moves. And I thought that that's where they would sit, and that's where they are right now. So that's my thoughts on the trade deadline. Let me know what you think of the trade deadline. Let me know what you hoped they would have done, what you thought they could have done, and would you have given the Commanders a 3rd round pick for Jacoby Brissett? Let me know in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night.